Amid the scare over the Nipah virus, 3 people who bathed in a pond in South Kerala have been diagnosed with a brain-eating amoebic meningoencephalitis infection. Kerala Health Minister has advised caution. A 5-month-old cheetah cub who was undergoing treatment for a spinal fracture died in Madhya Pradesh's Kuno National Park, and according to reports, the cub had fallen from a tree while playing. This is the 12th cheetah death that has occurred in Kuno, and a grim shadow has been cast over Project Cheetah. This comes weeks after the MP government had rejected an RTI request from a wildlife activist to provide information on the cheetah's health. The former IAS trainee Pooja Kedkar has filed a petition in the Delhi High Court seeking the Union Public Service Commission's decision to cancel her candidature for allegedly misusing reservation provisions. The Delhi High Court is scheduled to hear her plea on the 7th of August. President Murmu, who is on a 3-day Fijji visit, was traditionally welcomed upon her arrival. This is the first leg of her 3-nation visit, during which she will hold meetings with the President and the Prime Minister as India seeks to give further impetus to the historical bilateral ties. Iran has vowed to take decisive action against the aggressor behind the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, accusing Israel of carrying out a cowardly attack. The Foreign Ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani said that the killing of Haniyeh, who was in Iran for the swearing-in of the president, Pezeshkian, was a flagrant violation of international law. A nervous calm has settled in over the coastal city of Nahariya, just 9 kilometers from Israel's border with Lebanon, as regional tensions simmer following twin assassinations in Beirut and Tehran last week. Now, while Israel braces for a response from Iran and its ally Hezbollah, residents in Nahariya on Monday seem to be going about their lives, shopping, eating out, and enjoying the beach. In the southern Beirut neighborhood of Tahir, businesses opened and traffic jams continued as normal, even next to the building that was hit in an Israeli airstrike last week, which killed Faoud Shukur, the Hezbollah commander, and 6 other people. Israel has been bracing for retaliation from Iran and its allied militias. Passengers at Beirut's Rafiq Hariri International Airport were affected by flight disruption as fears of an all-out regional war grow. Turkey and Japan became the latest countries to urge their citizens to leave Lebanon following last week's airstrike in Beirut that killed a top Hezbollah military commander. Fears of an escalation in the simmering conflict between Hezbollah and Israel have prompted some airlines to cancel flights to Lebanon, and some international flights were cancelled while others were delayed, leaving passengers waiting at the departure terminal. The German government has joined the United States and the United Kingdom in urging its nationals in Lebanon to leave the country immediately. He also detailed registration systems for German nationals to notify the government if they are in the country. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah said that it launched a drone attack early Monday on northern Israel that the Israeli military said wounded 2 Israeli troops. Medical supplies provided by the World Health Organization arrived in the Lebanese capital. A plane landed at the Beirut Rafiq Hariri International Airport, carrying over 100 pallets of about 32 tons of emergency supplies and trauma kits. The shipment is part of preparations by the medical sector in Lebanon in case of an escalation in the situation with Israel. Israel returned the bodies of more than 80 Palestinians killed in its military offensive in the Gaza Strip, as Israeli airstrikes killed at least 18 more people on Monday. It said that Israeli forces had stolen 2,000 bodies since the 7th of October from dozens of cemeteries, which they bulldozed during their ongoing military offensive. The The Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip have risen to over 39,000. A total of 91,000 people had been wounded in Gaza since the new round of Palestinian-Israeli conflict broke out last October. The health authorities have said this. Over the past 24 hours, the Israeli military had killed 40 people and wounded 71 others. Around 500,000 people in the war-ravaged Gaza Strip are having limited access to water supply services as there has been a significant reduction in clean water production across the region. 2 out of 3 water pipelines from Israel are now operational, up from 1 a few months ago, but they're only operating at between 63% to 83% capacity. The Iraqi government held an event to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Islamic State group's atrocities against Iraq's Yazidi community, a small religious minority. The event was attended by the Iraqi Prime Minister, Yazidi survivors, leaders of the community, the Speaker of the Iraqi Parliament, and leaders of political parties in Iraq. Addressing the attendees, the Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, said that Israel was committing crimes in Gaza similar to the Islamic State group's crimes against the Yazidis. The Australian government elevated the nation's terror threat alert level from possible to probable, citing concerns about increasing radicalization among young people and community tensions over the Israel-Hamas war. It is the first time that the threat level has been elevated to the midpoint of the 5-tier National Terrorism Threat Advisory System since November 2022. UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper strongly condemned an attack on a hotel housing asylum seekers that saw at least 10 police officers injured, 1 seriously injured. More violence broke out across the UK in the wake of a stabbing rampage at a dance class that left 3 girls dead and many more wounded. The British Prime Minister Starmer said that there will be a standing army of specialist officers to help deal with the street violence that has swept the country over the past few days. Earlier, Starmer held an urgent meeting of the government's Emergency Response Committee with ministers and top law enforcement officials to develop a response to the far-right violence across Britain, which he described as mindless thuggery. The United States will hand over its last military base in Niger ahead of the September 15th deadline for the U.S. forces to leave the country under an agreement with Nigerian authorities. Airbase 201 in the city of Agadez is one of the 2 hubs that the U.S. has used for counterterrorism operations. Last month, the U.S. troops withdrew from Airbase 101, a small drone base in Niger's capital, Niamey. Nigerians in Lagos took to the street to continue the economic hardships protest despite the president's plea for suspension of the demonstration. The protests, tagged Days of Rage, are mainly against Nigeria's worst cost of living crisis in a generation and accusations of misgovernment and corruption in Africa's most populous country and a top oil producer where public officials' huge earnings contrast high poverty and hunger levels. The Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Cairo, and Fidan's trip to Egypt comes as the 2 countries are mending ties after years of tensions and difficult relations. Diplomatic relations between Ankara and Cairo had been frosty for almost a decade. The Japanese defense minister met with the Cambodian defense minister in Cambodia as he began a Southeast Asian trip. Kihara held talks with Seha as well as the Cambodian Prime Minister, and the 2 sides agreed to hold a joint military training course covering disaster rescue operations and to exchange military attaches. Cambodia officially broke ground on the historic Funan Techo Canal to build a controversial China-funded canal. The canal is set to link the capital, Phnom Penh, to the sea despite environmental concerns and the risk of straining ties with neighboring Vietnam. The $1.7 billion, 180-kilometer Funan-Tego Canal will connect the country's capital with the Kep province on the country's south coast, giving it access to the Gulf of Thailand. A small plane crash landed at a popular golf course in Northern California, skidding across the grass before grazing a building near the club's pro shop. Miraculously, the pilot did not suffer any serious injuries, and the incident is currently under investigation by the Sacramento Police Department and the Federal Aviation Administration. China's Ministry of Emergency Management called on authorities to stay on guard against floods as significant rainfall is forecast in vulnerable areas in the coming days. Now, while the overall precipitation in the country will weaken over the next 3 days, measurable rainfall is still expected in the northeastern region, the Yellow River and the other river basins, and southwest China's Yunnan province. Hurricane Debbie reached the Big Bend coast of Florida, bringing with it the potential for catastrophic flooding and life-threatening storm surge as it slowly passes over the northern part of the state. The forecasters warned that in the coming days, record-setting rain could pummel coastal Georgia and South Carolina as the storm heads east. The non-profit organization Doctors Without Borders says it has carried out 2 rescue operations at sea off of the Libyan coast. And according to the organization, 73 people were rescued. On Friday nights, 47 people were taken from a fiberglass boat that was in difficulty, safely boarding them on their Geo Barents rescue ship. According to a report, economists at financial giant Goldman Sachs have raised the likelihood of a recession in the United States in the next 12 months from 15% to 25%. The 10 percentage point hike is higher than their previous forecast. Ukrainian fencers Olga and Olena received a rapturous reception at Ukraine House in Paris after winning their first gold medals in the Paris Olympics. Carlin got the winning touch, ripped off her fencing mask, and sank to her knees. When she got up again, it was to dance on the piste wrapped in a Ukrainian flag and joined teammates Alina, Olena, and Yulia in celebration. China's tennis ace Zheng Qinwen defeated Donna Vekic of Croatia 6-2, 6-3 for the women's singles gold at the Paris Olympics. This is also China's second Olympic tennis gold. The last time China saw gold in an Olympic tennis event was Athens 2004, where Li Ting and Sun Tiantian defeated Spain's Conchita Martinez and Virginia Ruano Pascual to win the women's doubles title. All eyes are on Golden Boy Neeraj Chopra. The Olympic gold medalist is set to take part in the javelin throw qualification round. The defending champion will compete in Group B starting at 3:20 p.m. Indian time. If Chopra qualifies, he will advance to the finals on Thursday. And the nation pins hopes on the hockey team, which will take on Germany in the semi-finals. On the 4th of August, the Indian team pulled off a remarkable victory over Great Britain, defying the odds.